Just a moment.
This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. You can go ahead and start, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. The April 14th, 2021 meeting of the Finance Committee will come to order with the following members present. Dr. Safran.
Present.
Mr. Ganadakis.
Present.
And myself, Michael Schottenstein. May I please have a motion for approval of the February 10th, 2021 meeting minutes as drafted?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. So looking at our fiscal update for February 2021, revenue was $379,169. You may recall that there's a delay in the renewal deadline until July 1st. That renewal deadline delay only applies to licensees who were due to renew prior to April 1st. All of the licensees who have a renewal deadline on or after April 1st have the same renewal deadline as before. So the decrease in revenue is a function of our licensees delaying their renewal of their licenses. But as a preview, March numbers are already starting to look better. We have an estimated $800,000 in revenue for March, which substantially matches what we spent that month as well. So the bad news is that our revenue is down. The good news is that it is very much expected and should likely be rectified as we approach the end of the fiscal year and our licensees start to renew again. You may note that our February cash balance is substantially down from January at $5,228,386, but that is still high by historical comparison, as 1 year ago our cash balance was also approximately $5.2 million. So our cash balance should act as a cushion over the next few months with regard to the anticipated decrease in revenue because of the renewal deadline extension. With regard to our spending, the yearly e-license invoice from DAS for $333,000 posted in February. This significantly contributes to the February net fiscal year revenue of a negative $708,614. And you can see it reflected in the operating row under expenditures in the fiscal summary. And combined with the drop in revenue, because of the licensure renewal deadline delay, this contributed to the negative impact on our cash balance. Payroll and other spending are otherwise consistent. We received $19,000 in disciplinary fines in February. We have an approximate target of $150,000 in the fine revenue per fiscal year. We are on track to exceed that, having already received $130,886 in total fines year to date. Any discussion regarding fiscal matters?
Dr. Schottenstein, this is Mike Ganadakis. I just have one general question. Maybe it's a follow-up to get us information, but I believe we've earmarked those fine dollars for outreach and education or something to that effect in that realm. And I was just curious as to if there's an accounting of those dollars being spent for that purpose solely, or if we're using those funds for other purposes, or are there in abeyance right now for future educational purposes, or just what the status of the expenditures in the forfeiture and fine category are. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, we did originally have that thought that we would earmark. To your point, I think that over time, we more just sort of had the sense that, you know, the revenue is fungible. In other words, we do have those efforts, but I don't think we're keeping like a clear track of it. Susan, do you want to weigh in on that?
If I remember correctly, the statute says it has to be used for enforcement and investigations, but we spend way more than what we get in fines in both the categories, in education and also obviously in our investigation and enforcement. So we don't have a separate fund. This money goes into our general operating fund, but we could demonstrate way beyond that $130,000 on an annual basis that we're spending on the efforts toward both education and toward the investigation and enforcement. I can go back and check the statute, but I feel like it says investigation and enforcement, but I'll check that.
It says investigation, enforcement, and compliance monitoring.
Okay.
So in theory, that's what it's earmarked for. But to your point,
we spend more than $1 million in that category. So
right. So I think we can make a case that fine revenue is being applied in that regard. So thank you for that. Any other questions before I move on to new business? Okay, thanks so much. So we have 3 orders of new business. The first order of new business is regarding a nurse reviewer contract. The standards review unit currently consists of 2 nurse reviewer positions, one of which recently became vacant. The unit supervisor, Brandy Dorsey, is currently assessing the volume and type of work done by the staff prior to making a determination regarding backfilling that vacancy to see if any restructuring would be beneficial. As a temporary measure, in order to avoid a backlog of case reviews in the unit, the board has entered into a contract with Jack Holdford, an RN formerly employed with the board as a case reviewer. The hourly rate for this review work is $29.16, which is equal to the starting base pay of a nurse reviewer. The terms require 15 to 30 hours per week, extending through the remainder of the fiscal year, and that expires June 30th, 2021. Since this contract could have the potential of exceeding $10,000, could even be $12,000 if full 30 hours is worked each week, the contract is being brought to the Finance Committee for approval. If we approve this motion, it will go to the full board for approval later today. Is there any discussion?
2 questions, basically.
Yes,
Why are we paying him the minimum or base entry level when he's an experienced reviewer and very, very talented? I mean, I don't know why we're paying him the minimum.
Okay, sure. Susan or Stephanie, do you want to speak to that?
Well, I think for one thing, we have to remember it's a union position, and we don't want to be contracting out union work to benefit a contractor more than you would an employee. You also, I think he was agreeable to that number. It's a temporary short-term contract. And I think we were just trying to be fiscally responsible with, looking at what, if we just went out and got a temporary nurse, what we would probably pay. I don't know, Stephanie, if you have anything to add, but.
No, the only other thing I would add is that if we were hiring off of the street, right, if we were hiring a non-state employee, that would be the starting salary for that person as well. So I think out of just a sense of, as Susan described the position, it's also very common practice that it's what we call step 1. You would bring a contractor in at step 1 just to alleviate any concerns.
Okay, I just think that he represent a higher level than a step 1, if you will.
Yeah, understood. And it's certainly not a reflection of how much we appreciate his work, because he's doing a great job already. He is very valuable for us.
Okay.
And Dr. Safran, you had a second question, if I heard right.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm having a senior moment, so I'll...
Any other discussion regarding this matter? Okay, may I have a motion, please, to recommend that the board approve the contract with Jack Holdford for a maximum of $12,000 to perform case reviews during April through June 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all. Our second order of new business is regarding an Attorney General MOU. The board currently utilizes 2 to 3 assistant attorney generals who provide legal services on a rotating basis. After a review of the board caseload currently assigned to the AG's office, it has been determined it would be beneficial to have an additional assistant AG dedicated solely to medical board cases on a full-time basis. In order to accomplish this, the AG's office has requested financial assistance to add an additional staff member to provide full-time support to the board. The executive director is seeking approval to enter into a memorandum of understanding, or MOU, with the Attorney General's office to hire an additional attorney to be assigned solely to medical board work, in addition to the support currently being provided. The agreement specifies maximums for each fiscal year. For the remainder of fiscal year 21, April through June, $21,587. For fiscal year 22, $124,643, and for fiscal year 23, $128,382. If we approve this motion, it will go to the full board for approval later today. Is there any discussion?
Dr. Shaughnessy, Mike
Yes, sir.
Amadakis.
Hi.
And I apologize if I misunderstood, but the figures you just described for the upcoming fiscal years, was that just for one or was that for all three?
Oh, it's just for one. It's just for the new one. That would be an addition to what we have right now. So right now we've got, essentially 2.5 assistant attorneys general. They sort of kind of rotate through the three, Emily, Kyle, and Mindy. And so this new person would be in addition to what we are currently allotted. And those funds would be for that additional person.
And I apologize for asking additional questions, but I'm going to.
Please.
But $124,000 for a fiscal year for one additional AAG, those numbers don't add. I used to work there, and those numbers don't add up.
The salary is, I believe, in the 70s, and then there's fringe, and they have what they call indirect cost, where they apply. They have a third-party vendor who does the fiscal calculation of what HR, IT, all those support functions cost per full-time equivalent. So it's actually salary plus fringe plus indirect costs, and they did give us a breakdown of that. And that is standard on all their MOUs that they do for all agencies.
It's also standard on how we cost our own employees. So if you looked at my salary, my total cost would be what my salary is plus, I don't know, Susan, what's fringe right now? About 30%.
I think it's about 38%, something like that.
So we're paying total cost of employee. I think the other thing to point out with this, and I agree, Mike, I was surprised by the cost too. Just because of the indirect cost, I thought was high. I don't know how much we have any say in that, but I do believe that this is a little bit cheaper than what some of the other boards are paying for their attorneys by MOU. We're in a really good position in that we do have 2.5 dedicated resources. That's an unusual position to be in as a board. Most boards don't have that those dedicated resources without paying for them. So I guess the gift, let's not look a gift horse in the mouth on the 2.5 that we have. It's sort of how I'm contemplating this, but to get that additional, I think will help us move our cases along tremendously. Excuse me.
If I may, Dr. Shaughnessy,
Of course.
shouldn't we consider just hiring a younger lawyer? I think starting salaries are in the 40s to 50s, and just bring them on our staff, and and increase by. I just $124,000 for an assistant attorney general, and I mean no disrespect to the assistant attorney generals; they're fantastic people, but that's a lot to throw. Can we review the MOU before? Can we? I'm concerned about the cost. For bringing on an additional one without demonstrating the need and then justifying the cost. I understand that and these are my words, not Stephanie's. This is what the AG said it is, and it is what it is. I get that, but to enter an MOU, it takes two parties to agree to the terms, and I'm not sure we should be agreeing to $124,000 a fiscal year for an assistant attorney general.
When we I lost my train of thought. So with respect to should we hire internally versus hiring an AG? So the challenge with hiring internally is that it doesn't really help us with where we need the help. So right now our AGs we are booking cases out into 2022 because of the caseload. So we've increased our sites this year. We've been increasing over the years, and we're not keeping pace with what the workload looks like. We've also had quite a bit of litigation that our AGs have been pulled into, and we're having a lot of appeals. So we did have a discussion with them, and I have had that discussion with their section chief. We are essentially tapped out on the hours in a day that they can provide to us, and it is causing a delay in our caseload. We know that on average they can handle about one minimal standards case a month because of the workload and because of the scheduling and the prep work that's needed. So it really, there's not much we also need internal attorneys, but there's not much an internal attorney could do in this regard to handle the appellate issues and the hearing issues. This is really a matter of hearings and appeals.
So can we do part-time person and determine, as opposed to locking us into a 3-year MOU now? Can we just do it on a 1 fiscal year or a part-time basis, and then determine if, to justify it, as opposed to doing it now and then 6-8 months from now saying, well, maybe we didn't need the person, but we're locked in?
Sure. So we did think about that. The MOU language does include a provision that we have, I think, what is it, Susan, the 60-day out?
Yeah, 60-day notice. They're actually going to hire someone that's not currently on their staff, is my understanding. They're going to bring somebody new on. So the agreement was that, if we're going to bring on this new person to dedicate to you, we would like you to cover their cost.
Okay. And then, so the AG's office has a salary at 70, right?
Yeah, and I think they want they don't want a brand new person handling our cases.
I think that is the other.
Can we review the MOU as a member of Finance Committee? Can we review the MOU before we vote on it?
Yeah, it's actually still, we're still working with language. We don't have the final draft yet, but yeah, we can send that out.
Okay. Dr. Schonstein, I just want to be on the record that I don't feel comfortable voting for something without reviewing the terms.
Why don't we table the motion? Is that agreeable? And maybe we can take a look at the MOU and bring it back next month. Is that comfortable for everybody, or is there an urgency to the situation?
I do think they're in the hiring process, but our board matters. Our board decides. So if that makes you feel more comfortable, we'll wait till May.
Would it be helpful to send it out this morning so you can see it before the full board meets? And then if it's acceptable, we could go ahead and vote at the full board?
I mean, that feels reasonable to me. Is that comfortable for you, Mike?
Yeah, I think it is. I just, if we're going to vote on something, I'm not trying to be foreign in anyone's side. It's my name and my vote. I want to make sure I read the document before voting on it.
Yeah, and just so you know, the language that we've requested to be added, they use sort of they have a template MOU, and that's what we have is their template. And we've requested that they add that this is in addition to the support that we already receive from the 3. We want to make it very clear that the 3 that we have are still at no cost. We expect that to continue as is, and this is an addition. So that's the only language that we've asked to be added to their template.
So in terms of the motion, shall we table the motion, or can we amend it to say that we approve it, pending our review of the MOU?
That would be fine with me.
That okay, Mr. Gondadakis, to do it like that?
Yes, pending review, of course, yeah. Right?
Sure, of course.
Okay.
Okay, great. I really appreciate your bringing those points up in that discussion. Thank you so much. Is there any further discussion?
Can I add one thing? If we don't get that language, we'll pull the MOU. That's a deal breaker if we don't get that language included.
Thank you.
When you say that language, you're referring to specific
the language that Susan just referenced about that it being in addition to.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you. Okay. Well, if you all would be so kind then.
The
yes, sir.
for this is that we're using the fining money. Technically, it would be a wash with the fining money and hiring the new person. So, you know, that's a positive. It doesn't really come out of our pockets, if you will, because we're doing it for exactly what the fining money has been earmarked for. So,
and I guess the only other thing I would add is that I'm hopeful that we're able to work this out where we have that additional support from the AG's office, not only to proceed in a more timely manner with pending cases, but also to hopefully address the backlog issue that we have with the older cases.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, so then I'll just sort of amend the motion and just say, may I have a motion, please, to recommend that the board approve the executive director entering into an MOU with the Attorney General's office not to exceed $21,587 in fiscal year 21, $124,643 in fiscal year 22, and $128,382 in fiscal year 23 for the purpose of acquiring one additional full-time assistant AG dedicated to medical board issues and cases pending our review of the MOU.
so
Is there a motion? Dr. Safran?
Second.
Thank you so much. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you all. And so finally, our third order of new business is regarding a special counsel assignment. Beginning in December 2019, Schumacher, Loop, and Kendrick was appointed as special counsel to defend the State Medical Board of Ohio in responding to subpoenas, ducus tecum, and subpoenas for deposition issued in opioid-related lawsuits, including the multi-district litigation in federal court in the Northern District of Ohio and litigation filed against pharmaceutical manufacturers and distributors in Ross and Madison counties. The opioid litigation is ongoing. The board previously approved $49,500 for fiscal year 21, but due to the ongoing work in this case, is now anticipating an additional $40,000 will be billable in this fiscal year. The AG's office will be requesting controlling board approval of these additional expenditures at its April 19, 2021 meeting. If we approve this motion, it will go to the full board for approval later today. Is there any discussion?
Dr. Santino,
Yes, go ahead, please.
I wondered exactly what their functional role is, how their legal work is involved in this litigation.
Yeah, thank you. We have multiple, since 2018, we've had multiple ginormous subpoenas for records. And those records, and we've talked to you about that before, it's been an ongoing project. Those records are kept through the AG's office through a special system. And every time there's a subpoena, we also pull all the records that we've previously given in the other lawsuits and give those. I think there's, close to 40 different types of records requested on each subpoena that we get. In addition, we've had deposition subpoenas. Currently, I'm under a deposition subpoena. I may be giving a deposition next week. I don't know. It was previously scheduled for last month and canceled because there was an additional request for records, which we provided. So the legal work is, negotiating with the counsel on the records that we're providing, pushing back on some of those and saying, like writing objection letters to those subpoenas, and then also preparing our staff for depositions as well. So I know it's a lot more than we had anticipated. Previously, this work was done by the AG's office in-house, and they are not able. In December of 2019, they made the decision that they would use outside counsel. I have been pleased with the outside counsel that we have. we have one attorney that I'm working with, and he's been very responsive and good to work with.
Thank you. That makes it very clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is really expensive, and it seems ongoing, and it seems like there's no end in sight, and very labor intensive. And I guess I was just sort of wondering, is there a time when, this will end? And at some point, if there are settlements, do we get reimbursed some of this money that we are spending?
We have been keeping track of our time. I think that that's something that we're hopeful that may happen, but we have been tracking that. The other thing I would say is, with the multi-district litigation, there's so many phases to it. So phases get settled, with the manufacturers, and then right now we're in phase 3, which is retail pharmacies. So you kind of start all over again. Luckily we are using the AG system. We do not have enough in it that they're charging us. So we're not being charged for their system yet. But we are able to pull all the documents out of that system that we've given in other cases and give them. There still has to be a review, but that has helped us a lot. That we're not having to start from scratch on each one.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, may I have a motion, please, to recommend that the board approve additional funding of up to $40,000 for outside counsel Schumacher, Loop, and Kendrick to continue work on the opioid litigation during fiscal year 21. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, thank you all so much. Any additional Finance Committee business? Okay, may I have yes, sir.
Just real quick, the House of Representatives introduced their version, I believe, close to their final version of the budget yesterday. And I was just curious from Stephanie if there's any changes to our requests or modifications, or if everything is status quo for what our budgetary requests were in the budget that you presented via testimony.
So we looked at the compare doc last night, and we are status quo. So we're grateful to the House for that. And we have had all of our pre-meetings with the Senate before we testify over in the Senate. Our Senate testimony will be substantially similar, if not identical, to the House testimony. And hopefully then Senate will, assuming that what comes out of finance comes out of the full House later this week. We are anticipating that we'll testify sometime within the next couple of weeks in the Senate Health Committee. So far, status quo.
Great news. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you so much. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you.
Thank you.